Hello and welcome to another Drive-In Double Feature. I'm Ryan.
I'm Nathan.
And this is the podcast where we talk about two movies every week, every Tuesday and Thursday. But on this Thursday, we're going to be talking about 1985's Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins, directed by Guy Hamilton. And this is our second Fred Ward movie, probably his biggest starring role ever, because they gave him his own blockbuster movie to end here.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the adventure began and the adventure ended here as well.
Yes. Unfortunately, There was no other Remo Williams movie because, Remo Williams is actually part of a very famous book series. Well, I don't know about famous, but it's part about a book series called the Destroyer series that had been going on for a really long time. And I wanted to ask you, Nathan, how many books do you think are in this book series?
Let's 13. Is there 13 of them? Am I overshooting it?
I actually, you're undershooting it.
Oh, okay. How many are there?
Would you believe me if I told you that there is 152 books in this series, Nathan?
No, I wouldn't believe you. I'm looking it up right now. What? There's who has time to read all these books?
So there's about 152 of these books, and by the time this book series,
crap.
Yeah, I'm not fibbing.
I know.
So by the time this movie came out, like I said, was 1985. By the time this movie released, there had already been 40 books released for this book series.
Wow. So they were really banking on it being like, hey, we got an established character here, like James Bond, and we're going to make him the American version of that, kind of, right?
Yeah, I mean, these books were very kind of pulpy type of books, and kind of my understanding from what I've read, because I haven't read the books, but just reading reactions to the book series, that the first like 12 books maybe were actually played very serious and kind of bland, honestly, from what I've heard. But after that, it's very, very tongue-in-cheek type of stuff where there's a lot of parody type of stuff. It doesn't take itself very seriously, and which I kind of think you would have to do at a certain point, because it'd be really hard to just play these super straight for 152 books.
Yeah, 152 books, and they're all serious. You would yeah, I couldn't imagine. I wonder how many plots they've like redone and rehashed in this. I can't imagine there being that much new to dig out of Remo Williams.
I don't know, but what they would do a lot of times, from what I've read, is that they would feature like a lot of real life scandals or like real life people, and just change their name just a little bit to avoid any controversy. So I guess that's how they would get their material in a lot of ways.
Okay, gotcha. I guess that's easy, draw from real life.
But kind of what you said, though, I mean, this is directed by Guy Hamilton, which is pretty weird. Honestly, we didn't plan it that way, that both the films that we selected were both directed by Bond directors.
Yeah, it like just hit me while I was looking at the director for Remo Williams. It's like, oh, okay, Guy Hamilton, interesting, who directed like what many consider to be the best, at least classic Bond, Goldfinger.
Yeah, he directed a lot of them. I mean, he directed Goldfinger, Diamonds Are Forever, Live and Let Die, The Man with the Golden Gun. So, I mean, he was definitely well known in the Bond community.
Yes, for sure. And is he well known in the Remo Williams community?
Well, I mean, either that, maybe he's hated because it killed the series. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? Remo Williams, I could definitely see the Bond influences here, but they're definitely not as good as his Bond movies. I definitely don't think it carries over. I mean, I'll just say it right now. I wanted to like this movie. It's goofy. It's got like all the right 80s cheese, but something about it just didn't work for me. I kind of came out of it not really liking it.
I felt the same. So my thoughts were, so the movie, it kind of starts out like a Marvel movie, kind of, where in the beginning of the movie, he's kind of like this bumbling kind of police officer, and he's like really out of shape, but for whatever reason they see the secret organization sees a lot in him, and they basically kill off his real life persona and give him plastic surgery and make him look like a completely different person. And basically you're like, okay, you're going to be a new assassin for our organization right now.
Yeah.
And at first he's kind of unwilling, but afterwards he's just like, okay. But you get kind of like the training montage. He kind of gets a hold of his powers, and that kind of stuff I really liked. It was kind of like that cheesy 80s-ness. But by the second half of this movie, the action is really dry, I thought.
It really is. It gets really dry and really just boring. Like, they could have gone so many places, because he gets like an Asian like trainer, and I say Asian because they really play into that. And he like can like choke people's heart. Like, he literally grabs his heart like in the air. But Remo Williams, he never really learns to do anything like that. If he had gained powers or something, that would have been really interesting. But they don't really take it that far.
Yeah, and he kind of just learns like this real secret Korean martial arts, and they can really do like these amazing feats where they can dodge bullets. They're so fast they can dodge a bullet, or like you said, they can just grab somebody's arm and just render them unconscious. So
yeah.
And there's little kind of training montages where he's kind of learning these skills, where he's like learning how to balance. So he's jumping on these household objects and just trying to keep his balance, and that type of stuff was really fun. And it's definitely not played very serious, and his Korean instructor is very kind of smarmy and really just like, it's like, you move like a pregnant yak.
Yeah, great line.
So it's real stuff like that, which I was kind of hoping. I was like, okay, this is going to be pretty good. Maybe this is like one of those just like underrated classics that people just took too seriously. But like I said, the problem is that once he actually got out in the field and they gave him an assignment, he really doesn't do anything that interesting in terms of action. It's just kind of like he does like this secret like reconnaissance, and even the final climax, I'm like, that's it, really? Like,
yeah, they're really banking on it being like the beginning of an adventure. Like, like it didn't end with anything huge or anything. It was just like, okay, we'll do more next time. I don't know.
That's kind of how it feels like. It feels like an origin movie where it's just him kind of like taking on this smaller bad guy, and then maybe in the future, and then the movie kind of ends like, all right, on to the next adventure type of thing.
Yeah. And there are moments that really shine, though. Like, I do love that the head of the group that kidnaps Remo and changes his face and everything is played by Wilford Brimley. Awesome already. And he just sits behind a computer the whole movie. I think that idea is funny, that this big dude just sitting behind the computer, and he just he's taking in information. He's not even relaying it to Remo at all. He's just like listening to information. It's very weird, but it's definitely like computers will control the future 80s thinking for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like, because I really don't know the whole career path of Wilford Brimley, but that's kind of how it is. Like, when you watch these movies from the 80s, a lot of times there'll be people like Cameron Mitchell or like Leo Tung, where it's like these like old out of shape guys that they're clearly trying to put them in these action roles, but they're just not meant to do that. And they're just kind of sat at these desks throughout the whole movie trying to look menacingly or like important. So
yeah. Other than like small specks like that, I mean, there is one really cool action scene. I think it's a little slow, but I like the idea, is the Statue of Liberty fighting scene. And I think they play
like
on this.
that one.
Yeah, it's on the poster and everything, because I think that is a cool scene, because the Statue of Liberty is under construction at this point, or remodeling at this point, and it's like all fighting on the construction equipment and stuff. It's really neat. It's a cool idea. It has a really cool sense of scale, because Remo hates heights, so you're really high up, you see everything. Cool scene.
Yeah, it was really good. The aesthetics really cool. thought at first he was just gonna like murder these guys, because there's one scene where he clips like a noose to like a guy, and I thought he put it around his neck and then threw him off, but I guess it was just his leg
foot,
or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, it caught him, and I thought he just hanged this guy, totally just murdered him.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's the beginning of the movie. They play it like you're an assassin, no questions asked. Go in there and shoot somebody. Which I think is they're playing with fire with that, because the first guy wasn't actually supposed to kill. It was a test. What if he went in there and actually killed the guy? That would change. That would ruin everything.
Well, I mean, he had the dodge it bowling ability, so I guess they knew he wasn't going to die. But he does murder a couple of people, like non-assassin. Like, though, there's one kill in here that he does, which that was pretty brutal. It's like this guy's wearing a gas mask. Mm-hmm. And you know how they have these like glass eye holes with a gas mask? He punches through the eye hole, and this guy's face becomes all bloodied.
That scene would be so cool, but like there's nothing else like that in the whole movie. It's like really gory and bloody, and like this movie is not gory and bloody. I don't know, like it felt like something out of a different movie.
That's about the bloodiest scene in the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing that happens in that same scene is that to try to get out of the glass room that they're in, the bad guy has a diamond tooth, so he punches the guy, and he rubs the guy's like diamond tooth, like, and the guy's making all these goofy like smushed up faces against the glass while they're cutting the glass with the diamond.
Yeah, and see, it's times like that where I wish the whole movie really like did stuff like that. It was just a silly movie throughout, because at times it takes itself really seriously, a bit too much.
Yeah, well, like the rest of the movie is just played entirely straight, where it's just, I mean, compared to any other action movie at that time, where it's just guy goes into facility and stuff starts exploding, kind of, and like even like at the very end of the movie, like even the bad guy, he's totally bland.
Oh, like, yeah.
I couldn't tell you one personality trait about this guy.
Yeah, I watched that movie this morning and I'm already forgetting about him. I don't even remember his name, like, or anything.
Michael Grove.
Yeah, boring name.
I was just going to say, in order to kill him, they're like, oh yeah, you have to make it look seamless. So he just drops a log on the guy, and then
yeah. Oh wow, yeah, accidents right there.
Yeah, there you go.
There's this weird like subplot with Kate Mulgrew, which I thought was interesting to see from Star Trek Voyager, and I really felt bad for her in this role, because once she teams up with Remo, people just treat her like garbage. There's like a lot of women jokes, like a lot of like, oh, you're a woman, or the Asian guy like makes her quiet. It's like, oh, peace and quiet kind of deal. I don't know. It was a bit much to me.
The first thing that he says to her is, women should stay at home and make babies.
Yes, yeah. It's like, holy crap. And like, I know it's part of the joke. It's not, nobody making this movie probably believed that, but it kept happening. Same with a lot of like, because it is a white man playing this Asian character.
Well, I was gonna say this. That's a whole other conversation we have to have about this.
Yeah. So yeah, Kate Mulgrew gets treated like garbage, but is still gets that romantic tension with Remo.
Which is, for one, I didn't think they had any romantic chemistry at all.
They don't even really see each other in the movie anyway.
They barely interact with each other, because she's kind of like too nosy for her own good, like in the military, and she's trying to find out all these military secrets, but she really doesn't play much of a role in this movie. I mean, when she meets up with Remo, they're like, just stay back and let the men handle this one, or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Even though she's like supposed to be like a military woman, like a tough military woman. It's I don't know. It definitely serves just so Remo can have a female person there. You know, that's all it is. It's like, okay, we need to get him a woman. Let's just write that into the plot. Right.
But yeah, I think that's kind of what they were doing, though. I think it was kind of like they wanted to have, like you said, they wanted to be kind of their answer to an American James Bond, but at the same time be like this mystical fantasy type of movie, but they couldn't really make up their mind of what they wanted to make.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was just a mix. I'm gonna guess there's probably just a lot of like meddling with from the director, writer, studio. It feels like a movie that would have a lot of issues. It's such a big budget movie that probably doesn't need that big of a budget, and I get why it failed. Just watching it, it just does not seem like a hit at all.
Well, and kind of like what you said about Friday the 13th, the final chapter, by putting a subtitle in there implying that there's going to be more movies is almost doomed for failure.
That's always a death note. Almost always. I just like I'm still waiting for Doug's second movie, and we'll never get it. Uh, but
Doug's only movie.
Yeah, Doug's first and only. But yeah, it's just like, I mean, because all it is, it's like a cheap grab at like, oh, if you don't see this one, then you're not gonna be ready for the sequel.
Yeah, I mean,
because
I mean, have you ever? I mean, I was trying to think of like other movies because I remember going to see Super Mario Brothers movie in theaters when I was younger, and they implied there was going to be a sequel.
Yeah, like it ends with like it's not even an after credits, right? It literally ends with the cliffhanger.
It's a cliffhanger. One of the characters shows up in body armor with a big gun, and she's like, "I need your help," and then that's how the movie ends.
Yeah, it's that I can't think of a lot of examples. I'd love to get a list of movies like that, but there's definitely a lot of movies that end with after credits or stuff like that just never get a sequel. It just leaves stuff hanging.
So it really there's definitely not that final feeling, and I guess they were just like, oh well, of course this is going to be successful. This is based off of a famous book series or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know, just weird planning all around, and it is a bad idea to. It's the 80s. We really, even then, don't cast a white man in an Asian role. I mean, I know Short Circuit came out that decade and was a huge hit, but like, there's plenty of Asian actors even in the 80s. Like, this seems something that would happen in old Hollywood. It's just kind of sad to see, especially because it is very much a caricature at times.
Yeah, well, we should mention that the guy playing the Korean man is Academy Award-winning actor Joel Grey.
Yes, yeah, who is still like working in Hollywood. I think he did a voice on like Phineas and Ferb, I want to say. Yeah, I mean, he still has a long career, and he's very lucky that everybody forgot about this movie. Otherwise, he probably have more questions to answer.
Well, it's funny because I remember the parts I read about with him, like being in this movie, is that apparently the director really wanted him in this role, and even he said, like, why? I'm not even Asian. Like, why would you even want me in this role? And he's like, believe me, the makeup effects are going to look great, which I will say the makeup does look really, really good.
It does look good. I will say that they did a good job because it made me question, and I had to look it up. You know, it wasn't an instant like, oh my God, you know, I had to look it up.
This wasn't like Mickey Rooney or whatever in Breakfast at Tiffany's, where it's just super obvious and very, very offensive. But
yes, yeah. But it's still definitely, it has its moments because there's like a joke about like, oh, they live in the jungle because he shows up like in a jungle at some point. You know, just a little offhanded, light racism in it.
Well, they make it very clear that his character in the movie is racist and sexist because he even says like, oh, what is this? Remo Williams is like, what is this? Kung Fu? He's like, Kung Fu, Chinese, Koreans are perfect.
Yeah.
I just keep saying stuff like that, and even Fred Ward, like when he's starting to learn the style a lot more, he goes, he was perfect despite him not being born Korean. Another funny scene was, I did like the little relationship dynamic though between him and Fred Ward. It was funny. There's like, they go to a carnival where he's trying to get over his fear of heights by standing on a Ferris wheel, and then they play a carnival game where you have to throw the little rings onto a bottleneck, and of course he does it perfectly, and he gets to take home this giant stuffed Pink Panther, and they're carrying it home together, and Joel Gray's character is like, remember, I want it, he's mine.
Yeah. No, I actually it's true. I like their dynamic. They're kind of like a cute odd couple in a way. They like bicker with each other because they live in an apartment together. And I mean, they're buying groceries for each other. And at one point, Fred Ward brings in a soda and he's like, oh, it'd be healthier to get an aluminum can. Why do you eat this garbage? You know, Americans, all they eat is fast food. It's like light comedy. They kind of work well together, surprisingly.
Yeah, and he really loves soap operas, and that's kind of like his big quirk. So,
Yeah.
But it's like I said, if it was more stuff like that throughout the movie, I would have liked it a lot more. But overall, I can't really give it that high of a recommendation, and it's not really worth it, to be honest. I mean, I was kind of halfway interested in checking out the books, but I don't know if I will or not.
Yeah, and it's definitely like would be interesting to check out the books just to see how it does compare. I mean, there's so many. You'd probably have to look up a list of like the best of the bunch. But yeah, I mean, as far as this movie goes, I wouldn't really recommend it because it is over 2 hours long and just very boring, and like the actual good parts are so spaced out that it's not coherently good enough to be something I could say go check it out.
Absolutely, but
Yeah.
I think about does it. Is that it for you?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's everything I have for this movie.
We want to thank you for taking us on our Fred Ward week. Rest in peace, Fred Ward. We're real sorry to lose you.
Yeah, no, I mean, just from watching these two movies, charming guy, really charming guy. He was a great lead, and it's kind of sad that Remo Williams is like his big break, but he went to go on to do great character work.
Yeah, and like I said, Tremors is actually like a really good horror movie, and I think a lot of people actually remember him from that one the most. So I would say if you want to check out Fred Ward at his best, maybe check out Tremors.
Yeah, for sure. Tremors is a great movie. I'd love to cover part of that series on here.
Yeah, I don't doubt we won't. We'll be talking about him again.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
But that about wraps it up. So Nathan, what are we going to be talking about?
All right. And so next week on Tuesday, we unfortunately had another actor who passed away really recently, and another legendary actor, and that's Ray Liotta. So I wanted to pick from some of his movies, and I thought one perfect for the show is the movie Turbulence from 1997.
And that one is on Amazon Prime. But hey, we also wanted to let you know, in case you didn't check it out, is that we have a Patreon, Drive-In Double Feature Podcast. And hey, we said we didn't have any content on there. We're going to be starting putting content on there. Just a couple little weekly tidbits on there. If you think, hey, 40 minutes to an hour is not enough of Nathan and Ryan talking every week, I want to hear them more. Well, you're in luck. We're going to hear us talking a little bit more on Patreon, and that's the kind of content we're going to be providing for you now. So if you want to go over there, just check us out over on Patreon. But also, don't forget to email us at driveindoublefeaturepodcast@gmail.com if you have any thoughts, opinions, requests. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at DIDFpod as well. But until next time.
Until next time.